Welcome, my name is Eric, I'm the spokesperson for the Roof Hospital, and today we're going to talk about wind damage and wind damage repairs, both temporary repairs and the full repairs. So, out in some areas of the country there's a lot of strong winds that come in unexpectedly and it really brings to light certain deficiencies in installation or deficiencies in products, and sometimes the winds are just so strong that it doesn't matter how well they're installed, the products just blow off, whether it be wood shakes or asphalt shingles or wood, or usually concrete tile doesn't get affected much by wind, but even concrete tile can get blown around a bit on a strong windstorm. Primarily though, we see most wind damage occurring with asphalt based shingles. So right now we're standing on an asphalt shingle roof, and there has been some wind damage here. We're here after the storm has been completed, and we're going to just talk a little bit about what it looks like and what to do when we find it. So starting over here, we're just you can see as we're walking across the room, there's the house I should say, there's a nice big patch here where there's some shingles that are blown off, there's some bare plywood exposed here, and there's going to be some moisture entry that can come in. Of course, anytime it rains or snows, this moisture is going to come off and get on the plywood. And you gotta remember too that the moisture that's going to come into the house here, it's not just the moisture that lands on this wood, it's all the moisture that comes from all the way from the ridge all the way down, because remember, all the water that hits the ridge rolls down in this direction and eventually hits this plywood. So we're not just talking about the rain that falls in this small area, it's the rain that falls on everything that's above it, because of course water flows with gravity, and gravity pulls the water down to the eaves trough, and if there's something before the eaves trough, then the water is going to go there. In this case, it's just bare plywood. In this particular area of blow off, you can see that the plywood joints are right here. This line here is the plywood joints, and here's the H-clips holding it together. So whereas the plywood can offer a little bit of protection for water, right on these joints you're going to have even more open, and this is where most of the water is going to come in. It's going to soak in the plywood, a little bit's going to get through the plywood, and then the rest of it's going to come through the joint, and the rest of it's just going to come in and fall underneath the shingles here. Now unfortunately, many roofing products are installed without a proper underlayment. In this case, there's no leak barrier at all, there's no felt paper, there's no upgraded leak barriers, there's nothing, it's just bare plywood. And of course that means that when there is a shingle blow off, we have water that can come in right away without any sort of second protection. So this is another reason why we want to have a leak barrier installed on all of our roof systems. So in a situation like this, when we come out and we see types of bare plywood, we're going to have to do some sort of temporary patch right away so that the roof is in good shape until we can come back with the proper product. Sometimes you're going to find, one or two patches on a roof. Sometimes you're going to find several. In this case, here's two more little tabs that seem to have blown off. Now it looks like someone has been here in the past and maybe before us and put a little bit of tar on that joint there, and that's just to help keep. This is the joint in between two shingles. This is one shingle, this is another shingle, here's the joint. So it's not a huge blow off like we saw way over there, but over here there definitely is a joint where water can come in through the in between the shingles and come to the plywood that way. One of the problems you're going to see here is this tar is installed and it stops below this other loose shingle. So the joint actually continues right where my finger is. There's a little gap where you're going to have water that can come in regardless of this failed attempt at a repair. Another thing you're going to see is that just because that shingle's blown off doesn't mean that that's the whole area of wind damage. If we go right over here, I'm just going to test these shingles to see if any of them else are loose. And in this one, this shingle is half loose. So this tab is about a quarter loose, where wind is going to come under here, and the next windstorm that comes by, if it happens before these full repairs get done, it's going to rip this shingle off. So let's just test around and see if there's anything else that's loose around here. These ones are pretty good. This one again is partially loose, and oh, this one is completely loose, so wind is definitely going to come in here. So we have a windstorm that hits on a Monday, and then a follow-up storm comes on a Wednesday. These shingles are going to blow off too, and if we don't fix these partially blown off shingles as we're doing the full repairs, then the roof is still going to be subjected to more damage moving forward. So we're going to talk a little bit about that in the future, but the point here is that we want to not just address the area of blow off, but also test the shingles in the surrounding area to see what else might have been affected by the storm. So let's go over here to an area where there has been a temporary repair completed by someone else. It's not a bad repair. There's a few key items that we want to point out here. one of the things to keep in mind when we're doing a repair is we want to just use something. We want to use anything we have on hand to keep the moisture out. Typically, you can cut up a piece of tarp, you can use some underlayment, you can use some spare shingles, whatever you have on hand, just to buy the homeowner or buy the complex or buy the management company. Typically, buy the homeowner some time so that you don't have to worry about water coming in until the full repairs are done. You'll see this particular repair has been done using a tarp. Things to really mention and look at here are take a look how the tarp is tucked underneath the shingles. It's a big mistake when people will just put a tarp on top of the blow-off and on top of these shingles, because of course water is going to flow under the tarp. So in this case, you can see the contractor has lifted up the shingles above and put a tarp tucking underneath, and then it even put some nails directly into the shingles to hold this all in place. So this tarp is not going to be able to come off. You see it's nice and tight. I can't even grab it with my fingers. There's nowhere for air to come in this way. There's nowhere for water to come in this way. It's secured tightly. And over here you'll see an interesting way to hold the tarp down is we have two nails here. Now imagine if we just had two nails here, wind can come under here and it can come under here. But now what we've done is we've put a piece of shingle on top of the edge of the tarp so that there's more strength being pushed onto the tarp consistently. So air cannot really get on here as easily as it could have if there wasn't something here. It's a little better to use wood, but still this is going to help serve the purpose. Again, this is just using anything you have on hand to make sure the tarp is secure. So we have these pieces of shingles installed all the way around, and that's just to keep the ends of the tarp completely tight from air and wind that could blow underneath and rip the tarp off before the full repairs get done. So now we're going to move over and we're actually going to do a repair together so you can see what that looks like. Oh, before we get to that, here's another little patch. When we talked way over here about little tabs that blow off, and this is another tab that was blown off, and we also fixed this already. Again, we just tucked a little piece of leak barrier up underneath the shingles, underneath this way, so that nothing can get under. The wind can't rip this off, water can't get under here. The loose shingles that are around the blow off are nice and secure because of the nails. There is a loose shingle here that we're going to have to tab down, another little loose shingle here that we're going to have to tab down so that they don't blow off in the future. But this right here is a good repair, and now we just have to come around and do some touch-ups to make sure it's all 100% good. So let's go and do a full repair here together, and we'll walk you through this whole process. Okay, so you can see here's our blow-off area. We have some bare plywood. We've got to fix this, and we're gonna do that together right now. We're gonna start by getting a good leak barrier that's like a synthetic underlayments or a tarp or a nice and water guard. Anything except for a basic building paper. We don't really want to use a felt paper because the felt paper absorbs the moisture and it will deteriorate over time, and it's a lot less strong and more susceptible to being blown off. So we have a good little synthetic underlayment here. We're going to get to the right size. We're going to cut it to shape, and we're going to put it in so that nothing else happens to this roof area. So we got blow off to go here, here, height, all the way to here. Okay, now we got a nice piece that's bigger than the blow-off area, so that everything's nice and covered. Now a big mistake is when people just nail this into place. They nail it into place and water can just come right underneath here. That doesn't really work. What we need to do is make sure this is tucked nice and tight underneath here. So we're gonna tuck this in. Come have a close look at this over here. Another big mistake that contractors will do is they'll tuck it under the shingle here and say that it's done. But have a look right here. Right in between these key lines, we still got bare plywood exposed. So yes, the tarp's tucked underneath this shingle, but we've still got an area that's exposed. We have to make sure this tarp goes all the way under, and not just a little bit. It's got to go under at least a full inch or 2 inches or 3 inches at best to make sure there's a good overlap, that it's not going to compromise the roof system. So let's just lift this up, tuck this in. We might have to lift these a little bit to make it fit. Go 2 inches over there. There we go. So if you look at this now, we have the tarp here, the leak barrier that's coming up all the way about to here, right to where that nail is. So we got about a 2.5 inch overlap of the shingle onto the tarp. It's underneath all the shingles. The water is going to flow nice and smoothly over top. The leak barrier is long enough to extend all the way out to where the last blow off is. It's got to come all the way out. It also overlaps down below where all the damage is. So water is going to come off these shingles onto this underlayment and then back onto the shingles into the eaves trough. This is going to buy us the time that we need in order to get the full repair done. But we're not done yet, because if we leave it like this, the next windstorm is going to blow this all away. So we have to put a few nails in here and make sure that it's not going to come off again. So now we got this in place, we're going to do a couple nails in the corners, and then I'm going to tell you about something, another mistake that a lot of contractors do. So we have a couple nails in here now. Could say that we're done. The tarp's secured in place and it's properly installed with a good overlap. But look at all this space underneath the bottom of the tarp here. The next windstorm, it's still going to rip this. You know, it's a good underlayment, but if we put enough pressure, it will rip through again, and this will come off again at some point in the future before we get the full repair done. Plus, up here, we've still got loose shingles all over the place. These are still going to blow off. Driving rain is going to push underneath here and get to the roof deck and causes more problems. So what we're going to do is put this down securely so that nothing ever happens. And we've got a couple pieces of wood here. I'm just going to grab a couple strips of wood. Okay, I got a couple strips of wood. We're going to place these around to make sure that this tarp doesn't go anywhere. Now, another mistake that a lot of guys do is they're going to put these woods all over the place and make this tarp nice and huge and all over. The problem with that is that now you're going to be damaging twice as many shingles as were damaged by the windstorm. And that's not really going to help anything except for making more work for everyone, and that's not really what we're trying to do. We're trying to be efficient, we're trying to be proactive, we're trying to be effective, be professional, and in order to do that, we want to just cover the areas that we need to fix and leave everything else. So we're just going to use a little bit of wood just to block up the bottoms here so that the wind can't pull this off. So we got some wood in place covering the seams. Still got a gap here, so we're going to block that too. There we go. There we go. There's no way that wind is going to come under this. This is stronger than the original roof. Yes, we've damaged a little bit of shingle here, but you know what? We have a really good repair. We've isolated the repair. We've also stopped wind from getting under here. We're still not done because we have loose shingles up here, so we're going to just nail these in place too. Another mistake a lot of guys do, they'll put one nail right here. There, that shingle's nailed down. Well, it is, but it isn't, because these two corners, this corner here is still wide open. Wind can still get under here, it can still work that nail loose and rip it off. So over here you've seen I put a nail in each of the corners. That's going to hold it down nice and secure. Some more nails here. You can see I put a nail over on this shingle even though it's not directly over the tarp. It's because it's loose. We've got to make sure they're all nice and tight. There we go. And this is what we call an efficient repair. It's a proper underlayment, it's not going to fall off, it's not going to deteriorate, it's going to last for as long as we need to get that full repair done. All the shingles in the surrounding area are nice and tight, they're not coming off. The bottoms of the tarp are secured with proper pieces of wood and proper nails. You know, one nail every 6 to 12 inches would be great. There's no water that's going to come in here, it's overlapped by a good 3 inches. This is what we call a repair that we can rely on, and that's what we're trying to do here, is to make this roof nice and watertight until the full repair can be done. This buys us time to go to the suppliers, get proper materials, look around for a proper color match, drive all the way back here, rip off this and then put on a proper repair. So this is how we want to see a temporary repair completed. We're still not done though. You can see all these shingles we have here, all this leftover. We want to clean up all this debris. Anything that's left on the roof here could blow off and of course do some damage. So we want to make sure that every little bit has been picked up. So we got all these put away. We're going to put them on our nice tarp here so we can carry it away. We're still not done. This is how typically most roofs are left. You do your repair, you pick up the main stuff, put our tools away, but we're still not done though. Because you look around, we still got some little pieces. We got a nail here, we got a nail here, we got a little scrap of old tar here, a little scrap of old tar here. This has got to go. These little things is fine to leave, but here's another scrap here. All this stuff is going to end up in someone's yard and on their lawn chairs, and that's not going to make a happy customer. So we got to make sure it's all gone. All the shingles, all the scraps, put all this away. Oh, there's another piece right here. Another piece over here, not related to what we're doing. Oh, that's on there pretty good actually. Still not done. There's a little scrap here. You know, the only thing that you, the homeowner, sees is what you can see. You can't see this whole repair, but you might see this in your tree. And you might see this in your tree and say, oh, those messy roofers. It doesn't matter how good the work was, they left the scraps. They must be messy and unorganized. So we've got to get all these little pieces. So this is a reminder to all your roofers out there. Remember, when you see these scraps, they got to go in the garbage too. Otherwise you go in the garbage. So this is a good repair. We're still not done. We don't know if there's any more damage that we haven't seen yet. For all we know, there's a bunch of damage that happened over here that we just haven't found yet. So how are we going to find it? Well, we got to lift every tab. We've got to go and check every single tab on the whole roof to see if anything's loose. See, there's a loose one right there. In these little loose tabs like this, we got to put a little bit of tar under there. I lost the tab. We got to find it. Here it is. So we got two tabs here that are loose. We got to use a little bit of tar. Now, not just any kind of tar. Don't go and get that cheap little blackjack stuff. You got to get the right modified bitumen roofing tar. That stuff it's good. It's rubberized, or it bonds with the shingles. It melts together. It makes a nice tight seal that we can rely on for a long time. You know, you got to use the right silicones here. You got to use a good modified bitumen roofing cement. Look at this here. This is a sealant that was applied by another roofing company on a previous blow-off, on a previous windstorm. Look, it doesn't even stick to the shingle. Now watch this. I can put my finger under here and I can remove it. It just comes right off and it doesn't stick to anything. This is the cheap sealant. It doesn't help anything. It doesn't solve anything. It makes it look good because you can say, yes, I put sealant down, but it didn't actually seal this shingle, and if it did, it was very temporary. Got to use the right product. Get it done the right time, the first time, do it with the right stuff from the get-go, and you don't have problems moving forward. This is how you get a proper workmanship warranty. Put some modified bitumen roofing cement, dab here, dab here, a dab here, pat this back down into place, and we're good to go. Not the cheap stuff. Let's put a little bit under here. Not too much though, just a little bit. Sometimes this tar comes out pretty quick when it's hot. If you put too much of this stuff on, it's gonna melt into the shingle, it's gonna boil, and it's gonna start deteriorating the shingle from the inside out. You gotta be careful just to use little dabs, not big blotches, and spread it out over a nice even period, not just one big glob somewhere. You wanna just put a nice little line, a nice little dab, and then give this a little bit of time. This is gonna stick together, and it's gonna be a nice solid roof again. Now, we just checked a couple tabs here and we found a couple little areas. We still got a gigantic roof to check every single tab on. That could take a very, very long time, and it's very backbreaking just to be walking around checking it. So here's a little trick that helps get this done a little quicker. We're going to use a leaf blower. We're going to bring the leaf blower on the roof and simulate a windstorm. And by simulating the windstorm, we're going to check and see if there's anything else that might be damaged that we couldn't see when we were doing our initial inspection, and it's going to save us a lot of time from having to lift them off. So I'm going to get the leaf blower and I'll be right back. So here we got a nice still leaf blower. We turn the choke on, give it a couple little primer pumps. We're going to get this going. It's going to get very, very loud here. So just bear with the sound for a second, but you'll see why it's so effective in a couple seconds once we have this going. So we go. So, we're going to simulate a windstorm now and see if there's anything else that's damaged. Start to bottom up. That's going to have to get fixed right there. Now, a quick note about this work that we're doing with the leaf blower and checking for loose tabs. Some guys are going to say, and they're going to think that when the wind damages a tab and lifts up the tab, that with time the sun is going to reactivate the sealant strip and it's going to seal back in place. Theoretically, sure, but that's only if you admit some of the variables that happen during a windstorm. So let's look at from A to Z. Wind gets strong and blows off the product. If wind is strong enough to blow off an asphalt shingle, it's also strong enough to carry dust, to carry little insects, to carry leaves, to carry fluff, to carry flowers, little pieces of garbage. It's also strong enough to carry things, is my point. And as it carries these things, whether it's dust or leaves or anything else, that's in the wind, and the wind is blowing off the product, and the product has a sealant strip. So let's put this all together now. The sealant strip gets broken, the asphalt shingle gets lifted, the dust goes onto the sealant strip, and the shingle comes back in place when the storm's gone. What does that mean? That means that there's now dust and debris on top of that sealant strip, preventing it from properly reactivating. Not only that, but sometimes when you have a blow-off, the sealant strip will stick to that shingle. And I'll show you what I mean by looking at some of these old shingles that have blown off. If we look at some of these shingles, you'll see pretty quickly that, here's a good example right here. This is the old sealant strip from a shingle. The whole thing's ripped right out. It's ripped out with the asphalt. The piece that this hole was connected to has everything, including asphalt shingle. There's no way that that's going to stick back together. It'll never happen. Here's another great example. Here you can see this hole goes right into the shingle. This is no longer a sealant strip that's broken. This is a sealant strip that doesn't exist anymore. It's gone. It's completely ripped off and onto another shingle. So this is why going over and checking the tabs and resealing them is so important. Over here. So it's pretty clear after just 10 seconds of using the leaf blower, there's loose tabs all over the place. So what we're going to have to do is get a helper here. We're going to give him that caulking gun and we're going to walk around. I'm going to find all the loose tabs and we're going to seal all those back in place just like we did over there. We're going to walk by with the leaf blower, seal them all down, double check it once we're all done, and then we can say it's a job complete. So this is how we do temporary repairs on roofs. I'm going to grab the caulking gun and just get a couple of these again to show you. We know that there's a few right over here that are loose. Just going a little tiny dab, not much. If you look at the size of this dab here, just a little one. It's a good, nickel sized or quarter sized at most. Just enough to hold that shingle in place. Just pat it back down, find the next loose one. Little nickel sized, quarter sized, little tab here as well. Seal that back down. Seal that back down. These are all good. Seal that one back down. Seal these back down. And we do that across the whole roof so that all these tabs are not going to blow off the next storm, because these were all damaged during that storm, but people don't realize it because it looks like it's okay. You saw real clearly a little bit of lit wind here, and this isn't a whole lot of wind that was putting on that. That was just a good 50 kilometers at most. You can see just how much damage there really was on this roof that was hidden until a professional comes and does a proper inspection. So we've got our helper all organized here, and we're going to go and tab down this roof. We're going to find all the shingles that might be loose, and we're going to make them nice and tight. across the whole roof so that all these tabs are not going to blow off the next storm, because these were all damaged during that storm, but people don't realize it because it looks like it's okay. You saw real clearly a little bit of lit wind here, and this isn't a whole lot of wind that was putting on that. That was just a good 50 kilometers at most. You can see just how much damage there really was on this roof that was hidden until a professional comes and does a proper inspection. So my name is Eric, I'm the spokesperson for the Roof Hospital. Remember to be proactive, let us help. We'll see you next time.